So, as you can see, I absolutely love this topic because we get into positivity. And there is a huge, huge hole on planet Earth for positivity. Okay? And I think you would agree. Okay? Even if you feel like a positive person, it's really frustrating because you look around and you're like, oh, there's so much negativity that goes on out there. Okay? And then we get negativity. It's really hard. Positivity is harder than we think that it is. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of practice. And this is why we want to present it to the kids in the format we're doing, because it helps them understand that this goes beyond, like the second quote says, it's not wishy-washy. This isn't the Pollyanna type of positivity where you just sit around and think everything's great and you pretend like the whole world's wonderful, because it's not. And one of the slides that you'll see here is we'll discuss that with the kids. So positivity is a real-world skill that takes a lot of practice, and it's not about being wishy-washy. It's not about just believing that everything's going to be perfect all the time. There's a lot of reason and science that goes into positivity. And Winston Churchill obviously has a ton of good quotes, but he said, the positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. And positivity ultimately is what unlocks that belief that kids can find within themselves to go out and try something new or do something challenging. And they can learn and they can grow and they can make progress in the areas of competence and confidence as they challenge themselves to do that. But it starts with having that attitude of, hey, I can go out and try this, having a positive approach to it, and even if it goes wrong, how can you approach it in a positive way? So, how powerful is positivity? I kind of like to think of it like an ant. Okay? We've all been taught about the fact that ants can lift 50 times their weight. That's big. That's huge. And these ants can do amazing things as far as lifting goes, and I liken that to the power of positivity. It's a small thing. It's a really small thing that's very easy to forget about. But because of the power that it has, small things can accomplish amazing things. So positivity is kind of like that ant looking to push a big rock or a boulder up there. So the biggest area, or the biggest researcher that I came across with the area of positivity was Barbara Friedrichsen. And she's a PhD out of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And she's done a lot of research into this idea of positivity and how it can benefit, or the lack of positivity not benefit, people. And what she found through her research was the positivity forecasts either flourishing or languishing. Now those are fancy words. And those are really fancy words. So the next two slides are kind of to help the kids digest what flourishing and languishing look like. So we talk about flourishing. Flourishing is great when you think of plants. The plants that are healthy, they get the sun that they need, they get the water that they need, they have the soil that's got the nutrients that they need, and when they have all those things that they need, they flourish. And you get big, beautiful trees with big green leaves, and you get fruit that's wonderful. By the way, awesome thing about fruit, you ever notice that the last thing to develop on any given plant is the fruit? Okay? There's a nice little lesson to be taught in there. Nice little thing to bring up with your kids is sometimes that hard work that you put in, that's the plant growing, and the fruit is the last thing that appears. And so sometimes it takes a while to get to that point, but flourishing is the plant's growing up to that point where it's going to produce the fruit that's so yummy that we love to eat and taste. So flourishing looks like this. Well, if this is what flourishing looks like, this is what languishing looks like. And this is really easy to understand because we've all seen the grass that's brown because the water doesn't get to it like my grass at home. Okay? I think we finally got it fixed. Okay? I paid a kid to come in and take a look at that. I think we got it. But I was tired of my lawn looking like this. Okay? Languishing's not fun. If you're a farmer, if you're growing something, you don't want to see your plants languishing. Because languishing is that dry, wilty, I'm not getting enough food, I'm not getting enough sunlight, I'm not getting enough water, and the lack of those essential things is harmful to a plant. Well, positivity has been shown to forecast the flourishing or the languishing. And what they found, what Dr. Friedrichsen found in her research, was that the ratio that forecasts flourishing is 3-to-1. When the positive inputs outweigh the negative inputs at a ratio of 3-to-1. And what that breaks down is it looks a little something like this. The 3+, that's flourishing and peak performance. If you dip below that now, if you're 2-to-1, and the green's the positive and the gray is the negative, if you're 2-to-1, you're keeping your head above water. Okay? It's nice, you can survive at that. It's not a lot of fun, but once you get down to the 1-to-1, this is where you start to get into the languishing. And when we dip below the 1-to-1, when our negatives start to outweigh the positives, this is where we start to see some of the things like depression and some of the other problems that plague not just our teens, but the societies as a whole. And we've seen numbers over the last little while that says Utah ranks near the bottom of the nation in measurements of positive psychological well-being. Okay? And so, if you think of it in terms of the positivity ratios, where are ratios going wrong? Where are we not getting what we need? And you can get into really fancy research, and it puts lines and graphs and everything, and they look at different environments. Like in a team environment, players generally need to get more like a 5-to-1 ratio in order to get the most out of it. So a coach, and this is part of what I like to do, is we have our teachers in here, so I like to throw in stuff like this for our coaches, so they can kind of understand in a team environment, actually a 5-to-1 ratio is what's necessary to try to kick that into flourishing instead of languishing. And sometimes as coaches, we get super negative and we get going the other direction. And we end up harming our athletes in their quest to try to grow and be positive by putting too many negative things on their plate. So this is important to keep in mind as you go, and you can really go crazy with that if you want to, and there's the book. Barbara Friedrich actually put all this in a book called Positivity. If you want to get it, read it. It's an excellent read. It's a little nerdy, but if you go that way, go for it. It's kind of fun. So one negative that you get. And so with that in mind, we start talking about what counts as a positive input. Okay? These are some things that would register in people's minds and hearts as positivity. Okay? Something that brings about joy in their life, something that makes them feel gratitude, or actually practicing gratitude, intentionally practicing gratitude. Serenity, inspiration, hope, having a sense of pride, and not pride in a bad way, but pride in, hey, I did a great job. I did something well. I gave my best effort to that. Having a sense of pride, that generates some of those positive feelings that we want. Showing interest in something actually counts as a positive input. Sitting in a class saying, hey, that's actually something that's kind of interesting to me. That registers as a positive thing, and we need to do that to generate positivity. But that's something that we don't talk a lot about. Okay? Amusement. Part of the reason that our kids like to tell weird, funny jokes is because it makes them feel amused. And that amusement registers as a positive input. And if they're in need of positive inputs, is it no wonder that sometimes our kids get a little bit silly? Okay? And they get a little bit crazy and they tell some weird jokes and stuff, but they laugh at it because they need that positive input. And amusement's one where we get that. Awe is a great one. Okay? When's the last time you were in awe of something in a good, positive way? You just looked at a sunset and it's that feeling, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's a positive input. And so we can gain some of those things. And then love is a huge one. Anytime you can do that. Anytime you can get love is a really good thing. Counting as negative inputs, any input that makes us feel less. And you got a big list there. Less important, less safe, less worthy, less unique. I'm sorry I put important on there twice because I guess it's important. Less valued, less appreciated, less accepted, less understood, or less recognized. Any of those things, if we get anything that makes us feel less, okay, it counts as that negative. It takes something away from our hearts and our minds, and it just forecasts languishing. And so if we get too many of those things, that's not a good thing. Okay, I love this one, and I would love to have longer conversations about this. Sarcasm is a really dangerous tool. It's really, really easy to think, oh, I can just be sarcastic and we'll say something, but because sarcasm is inherently saying that comment that can be taken one of two ways. But we assume that the person that we're saying it to takes it the right way, the way that we meant it, but it might end up going the other direction. But we have no control over how the other person chooses to interpret it. So, I started to get into this when I was coaching. And I started to evaluate some of my practices, and I realized I use sarcasm way too much with my players. And as a coach, sarcasm is a bad way to coach. I don't think sarcasm is a good way to try to motivate people to do anything at all. Because if I'm sarcastic as a coach, and you can think of this, if I'm sarcastic as a parent, if I'm sarcastic with my friends, how do they know when I'm being serious? How do they really know what I really mean? And if I introduce that doubt into their minds as a coach, as a parent, as a friend, as a teacher, as in any capacity, it's opening them up to interpret something that may have been positive. You look great today. But if they don't know how to take me, if I've used too much sarcasm, I can come and say, you look awesome today. But they think I'm being sarcastic, that positive just went into the negative. Because they think, wow, maybe they're being sarcastic. And so sarcasm is a really dangerous tool, and I think we almost honor sarcasm. I see a lot of shirts, and no offense if anybody has one, right? But we see those shirts, it's like, hi, I'm sarcastic. Okay? It's like warning people I'm going to be sarcastic. Well, if a person wearing a sarcasm shirt gives me a sincere compliment, am I going to take it as sincere? I don't know. So anyway, sarcasm, that's a total different topic, or you could go a lot of different ways with that, but it's a very dangerous game to play. Something to think about. Okay, so we get into this concept of what I call RWID, relative weight of importance and duration. So this is huge to remember when we start thinking about our roles in the lives of each other. Okay? My role as a teacher, my role as a parent, okay? The kids' roles as friends to each other, your role with them as a parent. The relative weight of importance and duration talks about how long or how much and where our positive and negative inputs come from. Because where it comes from matters a lot. And how long we're exposed to it matters a lot. If someone or something is really important to me, and I get a negative, it's not just one negative input, it can feel like 100. But if somebody really important to me comes and says something really sincere or really positive, it can count like 100 positives. And for kids, it's like, it's weird because they don't necessarily choose who those people are. And never will you get adolescents to admit this, but guess who has the highest relative weight of importance with them is? It's mom and dad. I had a heartbreaking conversation with one of my athletes where he spent 15 minutes talking to me about how much he just wants his dad to notice him and to love him and accept him exactly the way he is. And it breaks my heart to hear conversations like that, because if that dad sat down with his son and said, son, I'm so proud of you. I've noticed how hard you've been working at what you're doing, and I'm impressed. I know it's not going your way right now, but man, you're working your butt off. The weight of that positive comment could change his whole entire outlook on life. And this is why being a parent is the hardest job on planet Earth. Okay? It's so hard because you have that relative weight of importance in everything that you say, and so you get to be on your A game 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and you don't get time off. But we don't always get to, it's hard. Life's hard for us too, as parents. And so it's a challenge, but this is a tool that helps us as parents to keep this in mind. Now with the kids, I'm going to focus more on the things like, hey, if you've got somebody that looks up to you, what an opportunity for you to make a positive difference. If you know somebody, if I'm a senior and there's a freshman here and I compliment the freshman just by the fact that I have a difference in class, I'm a senior, I'm the big dog in the school, I can have a big impact because I'm just inherently more important. If I'm on a football team or a cheer team, or if I'm the lead in a play, or if I have some important role that people see me in, that puts me in a position where I can now make a bigger positive impact by spreading joy and spreading good and saying positive things. And I think when kids understand this, if they can start to think, you know what, I have the power to do that, that's one of the things I want to talk to them about and challenge them to harness this power of relative importance. Okay? The duration is also another thing. We can put up with some teasing, but when it lasts and lasts and lasts, then it becomes more and more negative as it goes. We can put up with a little bit of this, we can put up a little bit, but that duration also stacks up. And so it's important to keep in mind as we're dealing with this concept of positivity. Okay, so an example. So these are just some random things I threw down. I didn't get too scientific with it, but think about this from the standpoint of the kids. They plan to wake up early. Most kids want to wake up early and do something. They have these grand plans in their mind. I'm going to wake up early and do that assignment. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to go work out. Okay? Today's the day I'm going to wake up and go do 50 push-ups before I hop in the shower. Today's the day I'm going to get to school early and go talk to my math teacher and get the extra help that I need. And so they make the plan and they set the alarm. It's like, yeah, let's go. And then the alarm goes off. And they snooze. and the alarm goes off, and they snooze, because motivation's never there when you need it, by the way. That's a whole nother tangent. Motivation's garbage. Oh, it's a lot of fun. But see me after class. So they sleep in way too long, and their self-talk goes sideways. Because now what are they thinking? Oh, I'm so lazy. Dang it, I'm not motivated. I can't get it done. And so their self-talk goes sideways, and your self-talk counts as an input. If you're berating yourself all the time, that can be negative input. And that's a challenge. So you get to this point. So now we've just gotten out of bed. We've already said 5 negative things to ourselves. We're beating ourselves up. Well, now we get downstairs, and mom's like, you are so lazy. Okay? And it might be sarcastic. They might not mean it. It might be like an off-the-cuff kind of thing. But man, now we've just piled a little bit more on. Now we get to school, we get to class late, and the teacher makes some sarcastic comment. Oh, nice for you to show up. Which I've said as a teacher, and I feel awful about it. But I didn't know. Nobody ever taught me any of this stuff. And so we say these things to try to motivate kids. Okay? Again, teachers get to hear this too, and so I think this is really good for them. Okay? Friend gives you grief because you weren't there for me. Where were you before school? I needed you. Okay? Well, that makes you feel less valued. Okay? Or it's when it comes across like that. And so we've got through first period, and we've already piled on a bunch of negatives. But hey, that cute girl, cute boy, they see you in the hallways. Hey, what's up? They give you a little hi, the smile. Okay, now we're feeling a little bit better about life. Okay? Then you hop on Instagram at lunch, you look, oh man, only 10 people like my photo from homecoming this weekend? Dang. I thought those were cute pictures. Maybe they're not that cute. Maybe I'm not that cute. Maybe my day wasn't that. I don't know. Okay? And you know how it goes. Okay, all right, go to another class. Teacher's like, great job on that test. Hey, there we go, a little bit of positive stuff. Get to practice after school. Coach digs in. You're not going hard enough. On and on and on. More negative stuff gets piled on the plate. You get home. Walk in the door. Dad's like, I checked Skyward. You got 3 Fs. Get your butt in gear. And we do this. And we don't mean to be negative. We don't mean to be negative with each other, but sometimes we do. And it ends up, and we don't know what other people have gone through during their day. Okay? And then, of course, the little brother and little sister has to be annoying because, they do that sometimes. And so now we get to bed, mom stops by her and says, you know what, I love you. And that's cool. And that could be, you never know, that could be the tipping point. That could be what gets somebody to that 3-to-1 ratio. And so you go throughout your day, and again, these numbers don't match up with what I just said. But if we have a ratio, and it's surprising how easy it is to have the negatives. Because remember, you've got to have 3 positives to outweigh the 1 negative. And if our ratio looks like this, how do we feel going to bed? Not great. Okay? Not great. How do we feel showing up for school the next day? Not very good. Okay? Now, it's easy at this point to be like, oh crap, what do I do about it? Well, there's a lot you can do about it. You just need to create something like this. Okay? So how do you get that many pluses up there? How do we pull that off? And that's where the skill development really comes in. By the way, huge problem. It's estimated that 80%, think about that, 80% of Americans are below the 3-to-1 ratio. 80% of us need more positive inputs in our lives because we're below the 3-to-1 ratio. That's sad. Okay? You go to Walmart, you walk around, that means 4 out of every 5 people you see at the store are in need of something positive. They need something to get them going. They need something to put a smile on their face. They need some joy, some amusement, something. Okay? Is it any wonder that we turn to some of the stuff that we turn to numb out the negative pain? Okay? It's scary. So what do? We get intentional about hitting our ratios. Now, this is something we're going to be having the kids do. I would challenge you to do it as well, and please talk to your kids about doing it also. Because this is this was an absolute life-changing thing for me. 4 years ago, I started doing what's called the What Went Well Journal. And what the goal of the What Went Well Journal is to write down 15 to 63, and those numbers are just kind of arbitrary. But 15 is the number you want to try to hit. And the weirdest thing when I started doing this, I thought I was a positive person. I came up with 4 things that had gone well in my day. 4. And I got to 4 and I'm like, I don't know. And I couldn't think of things that I'd done well. I couldn't think of things that had gone well for me. And that was shocking. And so I talked to a friend about it who was helping me, try to be more positive. He's like, you know what? Go with something you're grateful for. And so I'd start throwing on things like clean drinking water, which sounds ridiculous. We take it for granted all the time. But the fact that we can go to a drinking fountain and get something clean to drink puts us ahead of about 2 billion people on planet Earth. The fact that I can put my head on a pillow at night, the fact that I have a roof over my head, the fact that I have a job, the fact that we have an amazing building like this, okay? Just having things you're grateful for can fill in that gap. And so as your kids are trying to do this, I would encourage them, ask them when they come home, what went well today? Tell me something was great about your day. What did you do well? What are you happiest about? Tell me about your most confident moment today. That's a great question to ask your kids. Are you used to getting the shrugging shoulders? That's what all my teenagers give me. And so, change up the questions. What's your most confident moment today? And they'll probably give you the shrug again. Okay? But you can stay with it and try to get after it. But this is what I'm encouraging your kids to do. And they'll have a journal. So I'm telling their Jet Time teachers, spend 5-10 minutes during Jet Time and just turn them loose with the What Went Well journal. 15 to 63. Now, if they get to 63, I'll be amazed. That's hard to do. 15 is hard to do. And it took me probably 2 months to get to the point where I could go to 15 things without going into clean drinking water, warm water to shower in, and stuff like that. And again, that's not bad. Being grateful is a really good way to invite positivity in your life. But when you can get to the point, this is the challenge for the kids, when you can start to notice the little things you're doing well during a day. I studied for a half hour for that test. I said I was going to study when I got home and I studied. That's a massive win. Because most kids struggle with procrastination. We'll talk about that a little bit in the next one. Okay? Most of us struggle with procrastination too. But the little wins. What's something you did well today? What did you do? How did you do it? What did you concentrate on? And the more detail they can get with this, the better it is. Because now they start to notice the little things that they're doing well. And when those start to pile up, you start to tip that ratio, all of a sudden it starts to forecast flourishing instead of languishing. And a lot of this can just be self-driven, noticing the things that we're doing well. So this is the big push that we're giving these kids, is to get them going on this What Went Well journal. I would encourage you, invite them to do it at home. Invite them to write down 5 things that went well. They finish a sporting event or performance of some type. What are 3 things that you feel you did really well in that? Even if they stunk up the joint. Okay? Even if they didn't do great. Even if their team got blown out. What did you do well? Maybe they didn't get in the game. What did you do well? Well, I was really supportive of my teammates. I cheered really hard. I helped the dude up off the floor. I listened to coach. And you can start coming up with all these little things, and pretty soon, like we talked about last time, the E plus R equals O, we can take a negative event, control our attitude, control our effort through doing something like this, and now we can start to generate positive outcomes with what we're after. It's pretty cool. And it's a powerful skill, and it's a really powerful tool to use in your life. Whatever you're doing. Okay? As a parent, oh my gosh, this saved my butt as a parent so many times, because I feel in so many ways like I fail as a parent. So many ways. But when I started noticing, you know what? I know my kids ignore me and they never respond, but I told them that I loved them anyway. I thanked them for doing a little thing. I've been on their rear ends to help with the dishes. One time they put the fork in the dishwasher. Thank you so much. And I noticed that. That's what went well for me. Okay? I noticed that they did something well and I complimented them on it. And so you can use this in any area of your life. Incredibly powerful tool. Total game changer. If you're willing to dig into that. Oops. There we go. So like for me, what did I look like? Okay, my What Went Well journey. I noticed that my wife worked really hard and made a great meal, and I complimented her on it. I gave my best effort in planning for my next lesson. I made a healthy food choice at lunch. Okay? That rewards me for doing better at some of this stuff. I executed my workout even though I didn't feel like it. I spent 5 minutes visualizing successful interactions. I picked up trash that was lying around. I didn't have to, it wasn't mine, but I picked it up. I helped make something look good. So we can notice these things. I paid attention in the meeting, even though I didn't want to be in that meeting, even though Ms. Johnson had a great faculty meeting, and maybe I didn't want to, I was distracted. But no, I paid attention with my eyes and ears in that meeting. And I noticed that about myself, and I can honor myself for that. I use better questions to start conversations with my children. That's a big one for me right now. What am I doing to try to generate more positive interactions and get more positive conversation with my kids? That's a challenge for me, and so when I use it, it's good to know. Hard to do these things. Most people struggle to get to 15, include the things like we talked about. It will take practice. It can be really frustrating, but it is time well spent, and it's critical for creating those feelings of flourishing in life. Okay? How else can you generate more positivity in your life? Brainstorm with your family. This is a great family discussion. How can we generate more positivity in our home? Right? This is a great thing to talk about in the jet time groups. This is a great thing to talk about with your friends. Can you imagine if kids would huddle up with their friends and instead of, oh my gosh, did you hear what she did? Can you imagine if they got together and they were like, hey, how can we be a little more positive in our group? How can we do a few more things today to make our school a cooler place for people to be? Can you imagine the power if friend groups started doing that and talking like that? Can you imagine if a team got together after a game and said, you know what, we're going to go around the circle, everyone tell somebody else something they did well. That's pretty cool. Okay? And there's it's just creating, what are the things that we need to do to balance our equation out? What do we need to do to get to that 3-to-1 ratio? Okay? And what can you start doing within your own heart and mind to get there? Okay, here's that important note I was telling you about. It is very important to learn that denying your important negative feelings or trying to convince yourself that something is positive when you are not feeling it is not being truly positive. Sometimes the most positive thing you can do is listen to your inner wisdom telling you something's off, something's not right, or there's something that needs to be fixed. And being honest and approaching people and having conversations, talking to people in a positive way, but being honest about how you're feeling, you can use those negative feelings, which are honest and okay, and that's part of who we are. And ignoring them and trying to make positivity a fluffy thing and ignore all the negative, that's not the right way to get it done. The right way to get it done is often learn from those things. What are they telling me and how can I handle this best? Who do I need to have a conversation with to help manage these? Do I need to talk to mom or dad? Do I need to talk to my teacher? Do I need to talk to somebody else? How can I manage these negative feelings? Because what that leads to is true resolution. What that leads to is getting over something negative, and then it creates this idea that, you know what? I had courage. I talked to important people. I did what I needed to do to get over that. And so by actually paying attention to what your inner wisdom is telling you on those negative things, it helps you to generate more positive outcomes and more positive feelings. So this is not about being fluffy. I don't want your kids coming home just, everything's great, okay, when it's not. Because sometimes to get to positive, you have to go through some negative. You have to embrace the fact that life isn't very good right now. But there are some good things, and we can move this in a positive direction if we start working on some of those things. And so sometimes the most positive thing we can do is have an honest conversation with somebody and try to move that needle in a more positive direction. So I hope that makes sense. And that's such a big thing, because the positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. Sorry, I forgot to change the unknown, because that's our boy Winston Churchill. Okay? And I love this one on the right. Always be positive. Trips down the stairs. Me, woo! I got down those stairs fast. Okay? Okay? If you can get to the point where you can do stuff like that, think about it. If something negative happens to you and you can come up with something that turns it into a positive fast, how resilient is that? How great would it be to have kids that can do that can embrace, you know what, that's part of being human, and I'm just going to roll with it. Yeah, I got down those stairs pretty fast. That's pretty cool. And so this is what we're talking to them about, the positivity. We want to really try to turn that loose. Positivity is critical. It's a crucial, crucial skill. And so we're going to get into that. That's the deal on positivity. I hope that gives you, as a parent, some phenomenal discussion points with your kids. Because if they're positive here and they're positive at home, it's that combination of home and school. And if they're both positive environments, we just covered most of their lives. They spend 6.5 hours or more here. They spend a lot of the rest of the time at home. And if those are both positive places for them, let's go. That's what forecasts flourishing for our kids. That's what puts our kids in a position where now mentally they can go to school and embrace a challenge and go after that AP class and go after that concurrent enrollment class and challenge themselves to take the ACT prep class again and again and again and try the test again and again and go and do the best that they can do. All the research suggests that when home and school get to this place where they're positive, where they have positive mentors in both places, that's when kids are unleashed. That's when we get our kids to the best possible place. And that's why we do this with you as parents, because we want you, we need you. We want you and we need you to get to that place with your kids, because your kids kick butt. Your kids are so awesome. I wish you could see them here at school, because I know my kids are very different at home than they are at school. Every once in a while I get a little peek on that. Your kids are the same way. You got some awesome kids. We have kids that pick up trash. That's awesome. Okay, I haven't been in a lot of schools where kids will pick up trash. Okay, kids take care of stuff. They look out for each other, and we see it. And so I hope you know that there's some great positive things going on. Your kids contribute to that, and we feel like we've got a really positive environment that we're blooming here. And I hope that we can continue to push it forward together. Okay, this is some nitty-gritty nerd stuff. I love this stuff. So I love to share this stuff with kids. It's three concepts, but they're super powerful. And as a parent, if you can use these at home, it really helps kids understand. I've taught this to my sports psychology classes, regular psychology classes, leadership classes. And it's great because they get to understand something like this. The levels of learning. This is understanding where you're at in the process of growing and learning. So the first step that we all start on is unconscious incompetence. Think of a baby. When a baby is just crawling around, it doesn't know that the only thing it knows about walking is that's what the big people do. Okay? It doesn't really sit there and be like, man, I want to walk, because it's just a baby. It just lives in that world. It's unconsciously incompetent. Okay? It doesn't realize it. But eventually they get to the point where like, you know what? Maybe I do want to try this walking thing. That's what everybody else seems to be doing, so I'm going to try it. And they move from unconscious incompetence. They don't know that they don't know. And then they move to stage 2, which is conscious incompetence. You know you don't know, and it's not fun. So this is where they get up and they're trying to walk. And they know they can't walk, so they'll do the cruising thing, and they'll do whatever. But it's that phase where you're in, where you're conscious of the fact that you don't know how to do it. This is no fun to be in, but this is where most of our kids are a large portion of their day in school, especially in math. So you think about what the kids are going through when they go to their math class, and they're in this stage of conscious incompetence. They know they don't know how to do it. And that is uncomfortable. It's not fun. But being aware that you go through this phase sometimes can help kids to realize this is just part of normal growth. I don't get this right now, but it's okay. And if they know that it's not the light switch, you don't flip it on and all of a sudden you get everything. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. And so I love to teach this to kids, because now they can identify the stage they're in. They can say, oh, this is what people go through. I'm in conscious, I know that I don't know how to do this and it's not fun, but I know if I keep working at it, I can get it. And then you go to the third stage, which is conscious competence. This is where you know how to do it, but you still have to put in that mental effort, and you have to kind of force it to get it. Okay? You have to, like, this is where the baby's walking. They're like, whoa. They look like a little drunk baby, no offense. And it's kind of cute, and we love it, and we laugh. Okay? And it's that feeling of, I mean, they're getting it, but it's kind of forced and kind of awkward. So it's like the student, they just got the math. They've got it, and now they're trying some new problems. They're like, okay, I think I got this. We'll try the math problem. They're like, oh, did I get it right? Yes, we got it right. Okay? So you have to think, you have to put in that. And then, of course, the last stage is unconscious competence. This is where you know and you just go. Okay? None of us have to sit here and think about walking because we've done it for so long. We're totally unconscious of our competence as walkers. By the way, you can put that in your What Went Well journal. I know how to walk. But we totally take it for granted, don't we? Right? Unconscious competence is a great place, but we want to jump from 1 to 4, boom, right away. And then when we don't get to 4, and that's why being in 2 and 3 is no fun. Because we see the people, there's the kids in class, bless their hearts, that it's like they were born to do math, and it's like they get it right away. And they frustrate the heck out of everybody else. I know because I was not one of them. Because they're like, oh, I got this. And we're like, oh, I don't get it. And for some reason, they end up at stage 4. Okay? Maybe it was the work that they put in, maybe it was some other stuff, we can't control any of that. But that frustrates us when we see that. And hopefully, as we share this with the kids, they're going to understand this learning's a process. If you don't have it yet, if you're not unconsciously competent, that's okay. You can work to get to that point. But it takes effort, it takes practice. It's you controlling the equation, E plus R equals O. You can't control the event, you don't know something. But you can control your response, your attitude, your effort, how you choose to treat other people, and being grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow. So as kids get this, the kids in sports psych love this. Because they're all in there for sports, and they're like, okay, I can actually use this because right now I'm trying to get better at shooting these three-point shots, and I'm just not there yet. And then when they start to listen to the coach, and the coach will say, okay, try this, try this, try this, it's weird and it's different. But when they practice it, and they work on it, and they do it right, and it's going to feel awkward, it's different from what they're used to, but they get it. Right? And then they keep practicing, and they rep it, and they rep it, and they rep it, and it gets to unconscious competence. And that's how growth happens for all of us. Sports, learning, everything. Okay, next on this big one. So we talk about feelings. Everybody's got their feelings. We've got songs. We're all in our feelings. Who is it? Drake that sings that song? I don't know if parents would know. The kids will know that. And they've got the song about being in your feelings. Well, there are many days that I don't feel like working out or practicing. I love to run. Yeah, I'm one of those crazy distance runners now. I promise you, right now I'm training for the St. George Marathon. Last week, I had a 16-mile run where I had to run every one of those miles at 9 minutes per mile. Now, to some of you, that's like, you're a turtle. To me, that's like heroic, because I worked really hard on getting to that point. But that was hard. I did not want to do that. I did not want to get out of bed at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning and go run 16 miles at a pace that was going to challenge me like that. I didn't want to do my workout when I got home last night. I didn't feel like doing it. But often we get this idea in our heads that I don't feel like doing that. And it's a really dangerous game to play. Okay? Many days we don't feel like treating people well. Somebody was mean to me, I don't feel like treating people nice. Okay? Many days we don't feel like being grateful. Something bad happened, it's real easy to get trapped on the negative stuff. I don't feel like being grateful right now. Many days we don't feel like giving our best effort. I just feel off. But you notice how it's the feeling thing? The most you can really ever expect from your feelings is happiness. And we all know, as adults, we know this better than the kids do. Chasing happiness is really hard to do. Because it's this feeling, and so what we do is we go with our feelings and we start following our feelings thinking, oh, if I go over here, then I'm going to be happy. Because I feel like if I do this, then I'm going to be happier. I don't want to do this right now, so I'm not going to do it so I can try to feel happier. And it's this roller coaster that we hop on with our feelings where we're just always chasing those feelings, trying to find happiness, trying to have happiness be something that we eventually get to and then keep. Because the funny thing about happiness is it's a feeling too. And so what it does is it comes and goes. Right now I did this, so I put off doing my math homework so I feel happier right now. But then tomorrow at school we're like, oh crap, that assignment's due. And now that feeling's gone. So that feeling of happiness is gone. Now what do I need to do to get it back? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to ignore it again. Right? And so we get trapped in this thing. So the feelings are a dangerous thing. Juxtapose that with the idea of principles. Principles say, I execute my workouts even when it's hard. And this was the hardest thing for me to get to as a runner. I don't care how I feel. I don't care if it's 9 p.m. at night and I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning and I was at school all day long. I will do this workout today. That's a principle. And if you can stick to that type of thing, that's when you start to chase the real meaningful stuff in life. Okay? The principle says, I will treat others as I want to be treated. We've all heard the golden rule, and kids are taught this. And so we'll talk about this. The golden rule is a principle. Treat other people the way that you want to be treated. But how many of us live by our feelings about treating other people well versus the principle of treating other people well. And so it's this beautiful concept as a principle that I am going to treat other people as I want to be treated, regardless of how I am treated. And there's power in principles. And those are the kind of foundations that when we build those principled things, we can stand on those when times get tough. And the times will get tough for our kids. They'll get tougher for our kids than they are for us. And we need the kids to be principled. And so we're going to talk to them about this idea of being principled, deciding what are your principles. And we're not here to tell them what their principles are. We're here to help them understand you have principles, and you live a principled life, because that is what's going to help you unleash your power as a person, when you live that principled life. Right? The principle says, I will be grateful, right? And it's gratitude that's proven to improve my outlook on life. If I am positive and I am grateful, I will have a better outlook on life. That's a principle. And sometimes science can support principles, and sometimes it can't. But in the case of gratitude, there's lots of research that shows gratitude leads to a more positive, better outlook on life. That's a principle that we can build on. The principle says I will always give my best effort. I might not feel like it, but I'm going to show up and I'm going to give my very best effort. And if that becomes who they are, this is one of the things that I hope the kids start to get as we go throughout this year. It is not about deciding what you want to become. A lot of these kids are going to end up doing things and jobs that might not even exist yet. Or they're going to be really different in 10 years than they are right now. But everybody can start to make the decision about who they want to become, because that's what adolescence is all about. It's identity formation. And when you create an identity, when you create who you want to be, now you can start to grow into that person. And so it's not about deciding what you want to do, but it is about making some important decisions on, that's the kind of person I want to become. And when kids can start to grab that and say, you know what? That's not the kind of person I want to be. That is the kind of person I want to be. And that can start to guide a lot of the decisions that they make. And so we're teaching them that concept. Don't sweat the details. Doctor, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're working at the post office. It doesn't matter. We need people with principle, regardless of their career. And that's what we're after with this, is helping them understand that. What we really want in life is fulfillment. We chase happiness because it feels good and it's nice, but fulfillment lasts. Fulfillment is something that we can really enjoy, because the fulfillment doesn't necessarily go away. The fulfillment is something that we can land on and stay on. And it comes by living by your principles and not by your feelings. And so this becomes a very valuable tool in these kids' arsenal as they learn. If I have principles and I live by my principles, I'm setting myself up for success regardless of what I choose to pursue in my life. And helping them, and this is one of the things I hope that Jet Time teachers are encouraging them. You can encourage them. What are the principles you want to live by? Because that's what's really going to make a difference. Because guess where confidence comes from? Sticking to your principles. It comes from saying, I'm the kind of person that doesn't work out even when it's hard, and then you back it up. The workout shows up. I don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go in and do basketball. I don't want to go to that 5 a.m. drill workout. I don't want to go with the cross-country team and run 27 miles. Right? But I did it. And that grows confidence. Because you did it. You backed it up. And that's what I am going to try to preach to these kids and help them understand. The power to grow confidence is in your hands. Pick a principle and stick to it, you're growing confidence. And that's a powerful thing for them to get. All right, note on procrastination. Many times we procrastinate because we don't feel like doing something right now. It is the kiss of death when it comes to procrastination. I don't feel like doing that right now, so I will put it off, hoping that I'll feel like doing it later. And I have this, hopefully I'll be even more energetic than this with the kids, because they all struggle. I've asked all my classes last year, what do you struggle the most with? Procrastination across the board. Procrastination. It haunts us. Even as adults, it probably haunts us. I know it haunts me, because we get in our feelings and we don't feel like doing it right now, so we kick it down the road and hope that we'll feel like it later. Okay? What are the principles, and this is the question that I'm challenging to answer with this, what are the principles that you can put in place to help you counter the problem of procrastination? You have a hard time procrastinating your homework? Great. What's the principle you can put in place? What do you stand for? What can you put into place that's going to help you to do your homework when you say you're going to do your homework? And we'll go back to this idea later on this year. We'll talk about increasing productivity. And so we'll really dig into some of these things and talk about creating schedules for yourself, putting items on a calendar, deciding on big projects that you're working for, dealing in areas of things that are important to you, talking about stuff like PQOs and things like that. But that's all coming up. But procrastination is definitely worth talking about now. Okay, last one. The 6 ways to fuel your mind. This is such a powerful thing to help kids understand, because one of my favorite analogies a math teacher ever shared with me is he had this thing called a function box. And he would put numbers in and signs in and stuff, and you can never get out of the function box something that you don't put into it. You can't pour in a bunch of these numbers and expect to get these numbers out unless those numbers somehow give you these numbers. You cannot get out what you don't put in. Okay? And when you start putting the wrong inputs into your heart and your mind, you're going to start getting stuff out that you might not necessarily want. And so what we talk about is these 6 fuels. And the 6 fuels are what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, how you talk to yourself, which is a massive one, what you visualize, and who we surround ourselves with. And so these 6 fuels, and it's almost like what we're trying to help the kids understand. It's like you have a sports car. You have a Lamborghini in your hands. You are a Lamborghini. You can be this amazing speedster. You could go down the road at 200 miles an hour if it was legal. Okay? You have an amazing vehicle in your hands. Would you ever dream of pouring water into the gas tank of your Lamborghini? No way. Because it's going to trash that really expensive, really nice car, and it will not perform as well as it can because we put the wrong fuel in. What we watch, what we read, what we listen to, how we talk to ourselves, what we visualize, and who we surround ourselves with is the fuel that drives us. And if we surround ourselves with the wrong or with negative people, if we visualize things failing, coming apart, falling apart at the seams, or going the wrong way, if we talk to ourselves like we're incompetent, okay? If we listen to things that don't add value to us, if we watch too much TV, if we watch TV that doesn't give us something good, if we read the wrong, how many people spend too much time reading crap on social media? That's reading, that's fuel. And so the challenge for these kids, what I'm challenging them to do with this, just do a fuel assessment. You don't have to make a major change right now, but just do a fuel assessment. What are you putting in here, and what are you putting in here? Because if you don't like where you're at right now, change your fuel, and you will change the performance you get out of your vehicle. Put better stuff in, you will get better stuff out. Invest more time doing your homework instead of surfing the web, playing too many games. And I'm not opposed to doing any of these things. I'm not opposed to games. I'm not opposed to social media. I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. But how we use it is crucial for us performing at highest levels. And so we'll talk to the kids about that, and I hope you don't mind. I'm not going to tell them to get off social media altogether. Because guess what? Social media actually has a bunch of positive stuff. Okay? I'm really, really faithful about what I follow on my social media, because I can pull up Twitter and I can find great quotes that motivate me. I can find coaches that put so much positive ideas out there about how to better interact with kids that I coach. There's a lot of good stuff out there too. It's learning to cultivate those tools for good. It's learning to use them to pour good stuff into our minds and into our hearts. And so we'll talk to these kids and just encourage them, do the assessment. Right? No judgment on our part. No judgment on our part. And I hope there's no judgment on your part, because your kids are what they are. But if they evaluate where they're at and they find one thing that they can improve, if they change, if they say, you know what, I'm watching too much of this right now, I'm going to limit that a little bit. If they change one thing and they move in a positive direction, isn't that something worth putting in our What Will journals? That's a huge win. And you celebrate that with them and you're like, dude, that's the most awesome thing. You got better today. And the relative weight of importance and duration kicks in. Okay? Because you're their parent. They love you more than they'll ever admit. And when you notice the good things they do, that helps them so much. Right? And if they can get to the point with that self-talk thing, where they start to notice those things in themselves, it's going to help them too. And so that's what we're sharing with the kids over the next month. This is where it really starts to go. I love this part as we get into this stuff on the Jet Talk, because if the kids start grabbing hold of this, now they start to have these tools that they can use, and they can start to turn themselves loose, and they can start to fine-tune those amazing machines that they are, and they can start to own their life and move it in a positive direction on purpose with positivity. Your kids can't lie. It's so fun to be here with them. And I know that they can be even better. I know that they can go out and change the world. And it's going to be really fun to see them do that. So I hope these tools help you. I hope these tools help them. It's an honor to be a part of it. I really appreciate you guys being here today. If you have any questions, stick around. But thank you so much. We believe in you as parents. We love this community, and we really look forward to continuing to work together to build this thing up. So thank you.
Thanks, you guys. So feel free to stick around and talk to each other, give each other ideas, and talk with us. And we hope you have a great night.